Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of the 2006 film Ice Age: The Meltdown. And we start off with the herd, Manny, Diego, Sid. They're living in this bowl-like thing. No, we start off with, of course, the obligatory Scrat doing his thing. And Scat's whole character is, if he was a real person, he'd be perfect for American Ninja Warrior. We see Sid being the punching bag of everybody. And sometimes he says and does shit where I'm like, yeah, I see why you're the punching bag, but also, what did he do that everybody hates him? Like, I swear to God, Manny and Diego barely tolerate him most of the time. We have this hack, salesman who's like, you're dying of cancer? I have a cure for cancer. You gotta eat this onion or some shit. You know, one of them type con men. And he's talking about the flood, the great flood. And then Sid proves that the line between foolishness and bravery is very thin, because he decides he's gonna jump off something called the Eviscerator, which is a waterfall called the Eviscerator. That's not brave. That's stupid. They managed to pull him back, but they do find out that there is flooding, and the saying, a broken clock is right twice a day, proves true again, because the guy was lying about the flood, but he was right about the flood. Like, he was saying the flood, but he didn't know there was a flood, so he's only right because he was, lying. He was saying there was a flood, but he didn't know the flood was actually going on, so, yeah. Also, the saying a broken clock is right twice a day or something, twice a day or whatever, is that because, different time, is that a time zone thing? It's, the clock here is wrong, but it's right somewhere. Somewhere it is that time. Is that what it's referring to? I don't know. Anyway, Manny, Diego, and Sid basically fall down the Eviscerator, and they're now their own little Paul Revere's like, the flood is coming, the flood is coming. And they were introduced to the greatest characters of this film, the Vultures. The Vulture says, basically, yeah, you're all gonna die, which is great news for me, because I'm gonna eat. And then he's like, well, there is a boat all the way at the end of the bowl. And they're talking, and he's the one that I think explains, you're in a bowl, and what happens to a bowl? It fills up. So, yeah. They end up deciding to go to, of course, Manny, Diego, and Sid all go together. And they meet these two possums. Crash and Eddie, I think their names are. And their sister, Ellie, who's actually a mammoth. We later learn that she kind of was separated from her herd or family, and she was taken in by a group of possums. Honestly, good for them. They saw this baby mammoth and like, hey, this thing is gonna be real big one day. It can defeat our enemies. Another thing, our main I don't like that there was kind of a villain or a monster of this movie. So, in these two fish monster dinosaur things were unfrozen, and they ended up wreaking havoc. They ended up killing the con man's sidekick. And in a horrifying turn of events, he proceeds to use his sidekick's shell which was his part of his corpse, as like a life raft and which is far more dark because his sidekick was some type of turtle, and I don't know if, and a lot of people don't know this, but the shell is a part of the turtle. It is attached to the turtle. They can feel you holding them and stuff. Yeah, they can feel that. They can, yeah, that's, Buddy was holding his friend's, corpse, his bones, and just, ooh. So Manny sees Ellie, and he proceeds to roll for charm, but he somehow rolls a negative 20 instead of a nat 20 or whatever it is. I don't know. And he proceeds to have negative charm. Negative. He proceeds to say all the wrong things, like, hey, it's me and you. We're the last two of our kind. It's basically our duty to repopulate, which is, brother. No, that is not how you get that. No, that is, no. Even I know you're not supposed to say that shit. Oof. It predictably fails. And then Manny proceeds to try to fix this relationship at the worst possible time. They end up on this ledge, which is breaking. Everybody's dying. Diego is held on by his claws. And he proceeds to argue with Ellie about how he didn't need to apologize. Yes, you did. And I don't like that he did not apologize in that scene. Ellie did. Ellie did not need to apologize. Why did they do that to... No. She didn't do that. She didn't need to do that. They didn't... no. Come to think of it, I don't know if he really apologized. I might have missed the apology, but if he apologized, it was still too late. He needed to apologize in that make or break scene, not Ellie. They managed to survive, and Sid later gets kidnapped by these mini sloths who try to burn him as a fire king. That is the funniest part of the movie, hands down. They end up kind of mimicking and mocking him before they burn him, and they're like, and he says, "You burned the Fire King, 1,000 years of bad juju." And he managed to escape and sit it up to where it seems like his instant retribution has been enacted. He, of course, comes back to the herd, and they don't believe him, which, fair enough, it's Sid. They end up getting to these geysers, and Manny proceeds to do the dumbest thing possible and bum rush it. Just rush it. So, of course, Diego and Sid, the greatest wingmen ever, come with him, but a geyser nearly takes Manny's life, and he gets shell-shocked. Like, he's instantly traumatized. This is the front lines of World War I, and he has got that 1,000-yard stare. They eventually manage to get him back, and they make it to the boat, but Ellie, Crash, and Eddie took the long way around, and they're trapped. So they go back to rescue Ellie as the water rises and rises, and those two monsters that I mentioned earlier, they come back and kind of stop Manny for a bit, but he eventually defeats them, I guess, and runs them off. That whole scene was pointless. There didn't need to be like a monster at this. They just needed to have him struggle a bit. They just needed to have him reach Ellie a few moments later than he did and have him struggle and then finally succeed. The monsters were just like, they needed a bit more, read to me as like they tested it, some storyboards of it, and they said there's not a lot of action. We need more action. So they added those two little fish monsters. And they just don't really fit, in my opinion. Of course, that is my opinion. And then Scrat proceeds to save the day by breaking the bowl with his with his nut. Ah. Mm. Um. Scrat is also some of the best part of this movie. I do love another thing I didn't mention. They passed a valley with the crows, and they proceeded not crows, vultures, and they proceeded to sing a song to the animals about food, which is real dark because they're the food. They sung about that. They're the food. Also, it's kind of false that vultures would be doing this, because all these animals are quite healthy. I'm pretty sure vultures only, stalk animals when, like, they're dying. When they're about to die, like, they're on their hands and knees about to die. That's when the vultures are just sitting there like, alright, what's on the menu today? Yeah, so there's that, but the scenes were pretty funny, and also could be wrong. I'm not a vulture expert. I don't got a degree in vultureology. Then a whole ass mammoth herd comes in like they're the damn heroes of an action movie, like it's the final countdown, and they're calling out the Hail Mary, and the backup arrives, the cavalry arrives, but the flood has already been averted. So this whole action scene, this whole dramatic entrance is because, Ellie and Manny thought they were the last mammoths alive, and they come in. Ellie initially joins them, and then Manny comes in and says, basically finally doesn't screw it up, but he still's not very good at it, telling Ellie that he doesn't want to be with her because they have to, but because he wants to. Finally. Good. And Ellie decides to, I guess, for some reason, choose him. So they crash. Eddie, Diego, and Manny all walk off. And Sid. Also, the little, weirdos come back and try to take Sid, but Diego stops them. Also, Diego's whole thing this movie was he had to overcome something. In the first movie, he had to overcome, his natural instincts of being a predator, of wanting to kill a human baby, wanting to kill Manny and Sid. This one was to overcome his fear of swimming. The water, which is a very valid fear. He ends up overcoming it to save Crash, Eddie, and Sid. And so, because, Sid is his friend, and, he's the one who helped him overcome his fear of water, he tells the little sloth, you can't have him. He's my friend. Well, he's not really my friend, but, he's my something. Ugh. And they walk off into the sunset, the group of them. The weirdest herd ever heard. And I just gotta say, I liked Ellie as a character. She was real fun. There was zero romantic chemistry between Manny and Ellie. I'm sorry, I didn't see anything. No. And it's coming off of them making a perfect bro movie with Sid, Diego, and Manny just being the best bros from the first movie. Crash and Eddie were also very fun characters. As I said, though, there was some things I don't agree with, like the fish monsters, Ellie and Manny's romance kind of falling flat. And also, the fact that the flooding was kind of averted way too easily, in my opinion. It's just like, alright, well, that's the resolution. Here you go. No harm, no foul. But overall, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next video.